The first rule of the Kazakh mountains: never kill what you can't eat. The second rule: if something hunts at night, let it be. But the most important rule, the one whispered by mothers to their children, by elders on stormy nights: never, ever shoot a wolf with golden eyes. Yaroslav broke all three. And now, something walks between worlds to collect his soul. In the remote highlands where Russia meets Kazakhstan, where ancient steppes rise to meet jagged peaks, there exists a boundary thinner than most. Not just between countries, but between our world and something else, something older. The nomads who've traveled these lands for centuries know to respect these boundaries. The wolves that howl at night are not just animals, they are messengers, guardians, keepers of an equilibrium that predates human memory. Yaroslav never believed in such nonsense. Yaroslav believed in gunpowder, steel, and the price wealthy collectors would pay for exotic trophies. His cabin walls displayed his conquests: bear skulls, eagle talons, and his specialty, wolf pelts. Not ordinary wolves. White Arctic wolves from the frozen north. Red wolves from the southern valleys. And his prized possession, the silver-gray alpha male that had once led the largest pack in the region. 107 pelts in total. He kept exact count, each one a story. Each one worth more than a month's honest work. But there was one trophy that eluded him. One legend that mocked his reputation. The black wolf of the eastern peaks. Unlike the phantom tiger of distant jungles, which killed to protect its territory, the black wolf was said to be something different altogether. It didn't hunt for food or defend its pack. It hunted for vengeance, for balance. Some called it a demon. Others, the embodiment of the mountain spirit. The old shaman spoke of it as a collector of souls, specifically the souls of those who killed without necessity. Yaroslav had first heard of it 3 winters ago, had dismissed it as superstition, but the stories persisted, growing more frequent, more specific. Hunters vanishing without trace. Traps found sprung but empty, surrounded by abnormally large wolf prints that appeared from nowhere and disappeared just as mysteriously. In the eyes. Always in the tails, the mention of eyes like molten gold that burned with an inner light. Wolf eyes reflect light, Yaroslav would say dismissively. Any fool knows this. But the elders would shake their heads. Its eyes don't reflect, they would whisper. They generate, like fire burning from within. In the tavern of a small mountain village, sheltered from a gathering snowstorm, Yaroslav swirled vodka in his glass and listened to the latest tale. Dmitri went up into the eastern ridge last week, a gaunt shepherd said, his voice hushed. Looking for a stray sheep. His dogs found him yesterday, or what was left. The man crossed himself. No animal kills like that. Plain. Precise. Not a drop of blood spilled, yet his heart was missing. His heart? Someone asked. The shepherd nodded gravely. Taken. As if collected. The black wolf, an old woman muttered, spitting on the floor to ward off evil. It marks those who have upset the balance. Hunters who kill for sport. Trappers who leave animals to suffer. Yaroslav snorted, drawing all eyes to him. A moralizing wolf? Next you'll tell me it carries a little book to record your sins. No one laughed. You mock what you do not understand, Yaroslav, the old woman said. The mountains are ancient. They remember. They balance. I understand profit, he replied, draining his glass. And I understand that rare pelts fetch rare prices. If this black wolf exists, its hide will buy me a house in Moscow. Others have tried, the shepherd warned. The Semenov brothers last spring. Expert trackers both. They found tracks but returned empty-handed, speaking of shadows that moved against the wind. A week later they disappeared. Perhaps they fell into a ravine. Perhaps they got lost in a storm. Perhaps they ran away with your wives, Yaroslav laughed. There are many explanations that don't require ghost stories. He stood, gathering his rifle and pack. Where are you going? The tavern keeper asked, though they all knew the answer. To find this black wolf. To end this superstition. He patted his rifle. I've killed over 100 wolves. This one bleeds like any other. The old woman's voice followed him to the door. The soul hunter cannot be killed by lead and powder. It exists in 2 worlds. It hunts with purpose. All wolves hunt with purpose, Yaroslav called back. For food. Not this one, she replied, her rheumy eyes suddenly sharp. This one hunts for cosmic debt. For justice. For the souls of the wasteful. The tavern door closed behind him, cutting off her final words. And yours is long overdue. Dawn found Yaroslav deep in the mountains, following the eastern ridge where most sightings had been reported. Unlike the lush jungles of distant lands, The Kazakh highlands in winter were stark, beautiful in their severity. Crystalline white expanses broken by dark pines and gray stone. The air so crisp it burned the lungs. A hunter's paradise, clean sight lines, tracks easily visible in snow, prey contrasting against the white. By midday he found his first clue: wolf tracks. Enormous wolf tracks. The paw prints of a beast that would stand chest high to a man. Excitement surged. He had expected to spend days searching. But here was proof, fresh prints leading into a dense section of forest. The tracks were strange though. Too perfect. Each print precisely the same depth despite variations in the snow. And something else, no drag marks between steps. As if the creature placed each foot with impossible precision. Yaroslav followed, moving silently between the trees. The forest grew thicker, darker. The sun's light filtered through branches in weak, watery beams. The tracks continued straight ahead, unwavering even where fallen logs or dense brush would force a normal animal to divert. It was then he noticed the silence. No birds, no insects, no chittering squirrels or scampering hares. The forest was empty, or hiding. The tracks led to a frozen stream and then stopped. No marks on the other side. No signs of where the wolf had gone. Yaroslav knelt, examining the last print. A perfect impression, as if stamped into the snow rather than made by a living creature's step. A cold that had nothing to do with the winter air crawled up his spine. Tricks, he muttered to himself. Ice shifted. Snow covered the rest. He made camp as darkness fell, selecting a small clearing backed by stone. No animal, even one of legend, could approach from behind. A fire burned bright, pushing back shadows. His rifle lay across his knees, loaded with special ammunition, larger caliber than needed for normal wolves. The first howl came just after midnight. Not from the distance. Not echoing across valleys. From directly above. Yaroslav's head snapped up, rifle instantly raised. Nothing but stars and dark branches overhead. The second howl came from behind him. Impossible, given the stone wall at his back. The third from his left. The fourth from his right. All around, yet nowhere visible. "Show yourself," he shouted, turning in place, rifle ready. Only silence answered. The fire flickered, dimming though the wood was far from spent. Then, movement. A shadow detaching from deeper shadows. Flowing rather than walking. Yaroslav sighted down the barrel. "Come on," he whispered. "Come into the light." As if obeying, the shape moved forward. But the firelight did not illuminate it. Rather, the darkness seemed to move with it, a void in the shape of a wolf. Massive. Primordial. Its outline shimmered like heat above a desert. But its eyes, they burned like forged fire. Molten gold, pupilless, emanating light rather than reflecting it. Yaroslav had faced charging bears. Had stared down territorial moose. Had killed men in his youth. Never had he felt fear like this. A cold, emptying dread that seemed to hollow him from within. He fired. The report echoed through the mountains. The bullet passed through the shape, striking sparks as it hit stone beyond. The wolf did not flinch. Did not react. Simply stared with those burning eyes. When it spoke, the words did not come as sound. They formed inside Yaroslav's mind, bypassing his ears, resonating directly in his consciousness. 107, it said. That is your debt. What are you? Yaroslav managed, his voice barely a whisper. I am balance. I am consequence. I am the collector of wasteful death. The wolf, if it was a wolf, moved closer. With each step it seemed to change. Sometimes it appeared as a massive black wolf. Sometimes as something walking upright, lupin head on a human-like frame. Sometimes as simply a void, absent of light or substance. Only the eyes remained constant. Burning. Judging. You have taken life without need. Killed without purpose. Created imbalance. They're just wolves, Yaroslav said, reloading. Just animals. So are you. This time Yaroslav emptied the rifle. 6 shots in rapid succession. Each passing harmlessly through the shape. It didn't even pause its approach. Every soul you have taken waits. Watches. They exist between worlds now, unable to continue their journey because the balance remains disrupted. The clearing darkened further. The fire guttered to embers though no wind blew. Around the edges of Yaroslav's vision, shapes formed. Wolves. Dozens. Hundreds. Transparent, ghostly eyes reflecting the dying firelight. Surrounding him. Watching. I have come to collect what is owed. Yaroslav dropped his rifle. Drew his hunting knife. Steel against spirit. Desperation against judgment. "What do you want from me?" he demanded. "The same that was taken. Life energy, soul essence." The vital spark extinguished needlessly 107 times. The black wolf was close now. Close enough that Yaroslav could see that its fur wasn't merely black. It was absence. What? As if someone had cut a wolf-shaped hole in reality, revealing the nothingness beyond. "There are two paths to balance," the entity continued. "Repayment or restitution." "What does that mean?" Yaroslav whispered, knife held before him, useless as he knew it to be. "Live 107 lives of service to the wild. Protect what you once destroyed. Become guardian instead of destroyer." Yaroslav almost laughed. Or I take from you what you took from them. Not your life, that is too simple. Your essence, your soul. To be divided among those you killed, allowing them to move beyond this plane." The knife trembled in Yaroslav's hand. "How can I possibly live 100 lifetimes? It's impossible." "Not lifetimes. Lives. Each dedicated to a single purpose. Each measured not in years but in actions. In choices. In service." The ghostly wolves circled closer, their forms becoming more solid as the fire died completely. In the darkness, only their eyes and the burning gaze of the black wolf remained visible. "And if I refuse both options?" Yaroslav asked, defiant to the end. The black wolf's form solidified. No longer shifting, no longer void-like. A massive timber wolf, its fur the black of starless space, lines of silver running like rivers through the darkness. "Then you join the 107. Neither alive nor dead. Neither here nor there. Waiting for the next soul debtor to pay your way forward." Yaroslav looked at the circling spirits. At their hollow, empty eyes. At the liminal existence they were trapped in. Something broke within him. Not courage, that had fled long ago. Something deeper. His certainty. His arrogance. He dropped the knife. "How?" he asked simply. "How do I repay?" The black wolf's eyes dimmed slightly, no longer harsh but watchful. Evaluating. "You begin by dying." Before Yaroslav could respond, the wolf lunged. Not at his throat as expected, but at his chest. Massive jaws closed not on flesh but on something deeper, something intangible. Yaroslav felt a tearing, not of muscle or bone but of essence. Of identity. He screamed. The world went black. When consciousness returned, Yaroslav found himself lying in the snow. The clearing was bright with morning sun. No sign of wolves, spectral or otherwise. No lingering presence. He sat up, expecting pain. Found none. His first thought, it had been a dream. A nightmare born of superstition and vodka. Then he saw his rifle, or what remained of it. The barrel bent impossibly into a circle. The stock splintered as if crushed by immense jaws. And on his chest, visible through his torn shirt, a mark. Not a wound, but a sigil. A spiraling pattern that seemed to shift when viewed directly, burned into his skin like a brand. Beside him in the snow lay a single black fang, impossibly large. As Yaroslav reached for it, knowledge flooded his mind. Not words but understanding. The fang was a tool. A key. The first step in a journey of 107 lives. He would return to the village, but not as the hunter who had left. He would apprentice himself to the old shaman, the one they called crazy, the one who spoke with wolves. He would learn the old ways, and then he would begin his repayment. One life dedicated to each soul taken. 107 acts of protection and restoration. One by one, balancing the cosmic scales. The villagers would speak later of the change that came over Yaroslav. How the legendary wolf hunter became a fierce defender of the wilderness. How he seemed to age differently, slower yet deeper. How animals followed him. How wolves would appear at the edge of the forest when he spoke, listening like disciples. Some said he was touched. Others blessed. The wise ones knew better. He was owned. Indebted. His soul partially claimed by the entity the shamans called the soul hunter, the black wolf of the eastern peaks. Decades later, when asked about his transformation, the old man who had once been Yaroslav would only smile his crooked smile and say, "In the mountains, everything has a price. I merely learned what mine was." Those who travel the borderlands between Kazakhstan and Russia still speak of the black wolf. Not as often as before. There are fewer wasteful deaths now. Fewer imbalances. But on moonless nights, when the wind carries voices from nowhere, the locals warn. If you hunt in these mountains, kill only what you need. If you take a life, give thanks. And if you see eyes like molten gold watching from darkness, run, hide, pray. For the black wolf isn't just a predator. It's the collector of cosmic debt. and it never forgets what it's owed. They say the most dangerous moment in the Kazakh highlands is not when you hear the howl of the black wolf. It's the silence that follows. For in that silence, it's already deciding: repayment, restitution, or eternal limbo. Choose wisely.